Gordie Howe did things big. His numbers were big, his hits were big, and the love, respect, and celebration of his life since his passing has been big. Like a lot of you watching this right now, I am not fortunate enough to have been alive when Gordie Howe was playing in the NHL. What that gives me though, what that gives us is the opportunity to look back at what he did. Look back at why he is such a prolific and loved figure. And I'm looking up Gordie Howe, I'm doing some research, and something stood out right away. Gordie Howe physically was a giant. I mean, you've all seen some of those pictures going around, particularly the ones of him fishing where he's got his shirt off. He's got arms like Popeye. But do you know how big Gordie Howe actually was? He was 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. Oh, he was 6 foot 205? Steve, I thought you said he was big. It's true. A player in today's NHL who's 6 foot 205, they're doing all right. They're not that big, they're not that small, they're kind of middle of the pack. But you gotta remember that Gordie Howe's NHL career began in 1946. So I went all the way back in time to the 1950-1951 season. Why that season? Because that was the first season that Gordie Howe led the NHL in scoring and won the Art Ross Trophy. He was 22 years old. 173 players, not including goalies, played at least one NHL game for one of the NHL's 6 NHL teams during the 1950-51 season. You want to venture a guess at how many of those players weighed 200 pounds or more? The answer, out of 173 players, 10 were 200 pounds or more. Once again, Gordie Howe was 205. Howe was tied for the 3rd heaviest player in the NHL that season. The 2nd heaviest was 207. The heaviest was 210, and that guy only played 1 game that season and 3 in his career. And Gordie Howe used that size to his advantage. 43 goals, 43 assists, 86 points in 70 games to be the league's leading scorer. Maurice the Rocket Richard was 2nd in league scoring that season. He had 20 fewer points with 66. So how big of a factor was size back then? Like I said, 10 players out of 173 were 200 or more pounds. Out of those 10 players, 4 of them are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Butch Bouchard, Harry Watson, obviously Gordie Howe, and a young 19-year-old whippersnapper from the Montreal Canadiens. He was top 5 in weight, top 5 in height at 6'3". His name, Jean Beliveau. And I remember the memorials and everyone remembering Jean Beliveau, and I remember hearing that his nickname was Le Gros Bill. And I remember being like, why? He wasn't even that big. I mean, 6'3", that's kind of big, I guess. No, today he's kind of big. Back then, he would have been a titan. Of course, size wasn't the be-all, end-all of skill back then. It didn't mean you were going to be a great hockey player. Gordie Howe's teammate, Ted Lindsay, was 5'8", 163 pounds. But in an era where 40%, yes, 40% of the National Hockey League was 170 pounds or less, Gordie Howe was a 205-pound giant. And in that sense, he helped usher in a new era. He's so synonymous with being strong and big and tough that he has the Gordie Howe hat trick named after him. Meanwhile, he only had like 4 of them. So you might hear someone, and that someone might very well be me, say something like, well, Alex Ovechkin would have dominated back in the day. That's entirely possible, but you gotta look at this by era. And in his era, at least in the first era that Gordie Howe played in, he was a different beast. He was a different physical specimen. The game changed forever. And I mean, we talk about how the league is trending smaller and all the players are getting smaller. Yeah, after like decades of getting way bigger. Take Leafs defender Morgan Riley, for example. You wouldn't think of him as a really big player in this league, would you? 6'1", I guess. 217 pounds, yeah, that's getting to the bigger side. He would have been the heaviest player in the league in the 50-51 season by 7 pounds. Cute little Morgan Riley with the hair and the bum chin, that guy would have been the heaviest player in the league. At 5'11", 200 pounds, Sidney Crosby would have been one of the biggest players in the league. Alex Ovechkin, forget it. Dustin Byfuglien, forget it. Zdeno Chara would have been chased down the street with torches and pitchforks. Witchcraft, kill the monster! I guess what I'm trying to say, I guess the thesis of all this is back when Gordie Howe played, Gordie Howe was pretty big. But that's just one thing, one teeny tiny, fairly obvious thing about Gordie Howe, a man who they called Mr. Hockey. He changed the face of hockey. He changed what people thought a hockey player looked like. Imagine him coming at you, full speed, on skates, on the ice. They don't even have glass, that nice flexible glass back then. They have cages that you get checked into, and he is a solid 20 or 30 pounds heavier than every single person he crushes. Even all that doesn't come close to doing the story of the legend of Gordie Howe any justice. And the 2016 draft is coming up. Everyone's excited for that. Everyone's excited for the players of tomorrow. But you know something? You won't regret making a little time to learn something about the players of the past. That is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Check out sportsnet.ca to learn much more about Gordie Howe. And rest in peace, Mr. Hockey. Wayne Gretzky called him the best hockey player to ever live, and he just might be right.